Just a quick reminder / heads up that BCTV does start recording at 7. Peter, we do have 4 commissioners present. We will need one more for when we get to item 2 on the agenda, which is joining us now.
Recording in progress.
There, Peter.
Katie, you all set?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Peter Basserman. I am chairman of the Branford Inland Wetland Commission. It is 7 o'clock on August 22nd, 2024. This is a regular meeting of the commission. We have BCTV with us tonight, so please make sure when you're speaking that your face is visible for the camera and the audience. We are conducting this meeting using the Zoom platform in accordance with Public Act 22-3. The agenda for tonight's meeting is posted on the town's website. It is dated August 20th. That replaces a draft agenda of August 15th. The material for tonight's meeting is also on the town's website. It is in the Dropbox, and the access to that Dropbox is listed on the agenda for the meeting. I'll now do a roll call of the commissioners. Commissioner Gokowski.
Commissioner Gokowski, present.
Commissioner Begeman.
Commissioner Begeman, present.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Armrod, present.
Commissioner Boda.
Commissioner Boda, present.
Commissioner Finaro.
Commissioner Finaro, present.
And Commissioner Basserman is present. Do I have everybody? Okay, I also have 2 staff members with us this evening. The Inland Wetland Director, Jamie Frederick.
Present.
And the Inland Wetland Associate, Katie Blanchette.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum for this evening. All commissioners that are on the call are seated and can participate and vote. Jamie, do we have any changes to the agenda for this evening?
No. As a heads up, we are expecting one more commissioner. I'll try and let you know when she arrives.
Appreciate it. We have 2 sets of minutes for approval. One, I think, of a prior meeting minute that was revised July 11th, 2024. With that revision, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Armrod, I'll make a motion to approve the revised July 11th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Second.
And who was that seconded by?
Commissioner Boda, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, Commissioner Gokowski abstains. Is there any motion to deny those minutes? Okay, minutes approved. We now have July 25th, 2024, the regular meeting minutes, which again were mailed out to the commissioners and is on the Dropbox for review. Any motion to approve those minutes?
Commissioner Ormrod, I'll make a motion to approve the July 25th regular meeting minutes.
Commissioner Boda, second.
Let's see, we'll move to approve those minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any recusals? Any denials?
I have to recuse myself. I wasn't at the last meeting.
And this is Commissioner Begemon. I listened to the recording of the full meeting and read the minutes, so I feel prepared to be able to vote on them.
Okay. Any other comments on the minutes from the commission? All right, we're going to reopen the public hearing on Inland Wetland 240202, 1 to 17 Beacon Hill Road and Beacon Hill Road, formerly known as 83 Rose Hill Road, which is an new active adult residential community. Again, this was continued from the July 25th commission meeting. My understanding is that staff has been in communication with the applicant. Jamie, can you bring us up to speed with that?
Sure. Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. First of all, Commissioner Papatonis has joined the meeting. Given
Okay.
that she's the 7th commissioner, she would be seated. So I have touched base with the applicant, and it's my understanding that they're looking to withdraw the application and resubmit a substantially similar application to the revised materials that were submitted last week. So I think that there's a couple things to kind of address. One is the fee reduction request that's on the table from earlier in the application process, and two is kind of generally what the process would potentially look like withdrawing and resubmitting relative particularly to the peer review and kind of public hearing timeframes, I think. So I think before we head down those avenues, I would just hand it over to the applicant real quick to have them confirm that that's their intention and see if they have anything they want to add to the list of items to go over this evening.
Doug Anderson for the applicant. Yeah, so we obviously have had that additional wetland flagging that's caused some redesign to the project, and with that, our timeline has I believe it's going to expire on the 24th as far as the statutory timeline that we can keep the public hearing open. So for us to properly present that, complete all the information, and redesign work, we thought it would be most prudent to, withdraw the application, essentially come back, to the next available meeting with a new application, literally identical to where we are, to pick up the ball from there, try and, we have the peer review kind of in process, and then try and, basically reset, if you will, the statutory time clock so we can get this information submitted and presented and, further questions asked and, give you guys enough time to be able to digest everything and, make a decision based on that. So I think really, some things we just would want to try and work out is how we handle the applicate, the new application, the existing application. We also have that cease and correct issue with when we had to reflag those wetlands. So figured it would be just worth having that dialogue. And then if everybody's in agreement, I have an email ready to go that, requesting that the application be withdrawn without prejudice, and we'll be back at the next meeting with the same information.
Jamie Frederick in the
Okay,
Lemonade. I just want to identify the cease and correct order is also on the agenda later on the agenda. So unless the commission wanted to move that item, it would be a separate discussion.
this is Commissioner Basserman. Does any commissioner have issue with the recommendation from the applicant that they withdraw the application at this point and look for a future resubmission date on a plan that is pretty similar to the one that was revised?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think that that's wise to do that. As Jamie mentioned, I'm wondering now if we just completely reset and then do new requests for proposal, or if we can continue to work with the peer evaluators. If there is a requirement on us to do a new request for a proposal, or if we could, again, just revise or create a new contract given the known parameters.
Jamie Frederick in the Wetland Agent. I have looked into that. Says it would certainly expedite the process and not reset us completely back to square one. I've discussed that with the applicant and with the peer review team, CLA engineers. It is something that we could do, and it looks like it's something the applicant would like to do. I would probably say the best course of action, given that it's two separate applications, is that any unused peer review funds would be returned to the applicant, and then likely the best course of action would be to use that remaining portion of the peer review that has not been completed as the complex application fee for the new application. And then, of course, if the commission during the review process finds that additional review would be required, that could be adjusted during that review period. We do have the peer review team present just to kind of help, address any concerns the commission might have on that front. My understanding is that the applicant is looking to resubmit for the September 12th meeting. I think that it would be tight to get the public hearing notice in for the September 26th meeting, which would likely put us at the October 10th meeting for a recommended opening of the public hearing. A benefit of that would be that ideally the peer review would be able to complete the review prior to the public hearing, and perhaps the applicant would be able to provide some responses as well. So that's kind of the thought process I had regarding the peer review and public hearing process, with that understanding that kind of the peer review would be, reiterated on the record and confirmed on the record, and the public hearing date would be set the night the application is for receipt. With staff having looked at it quickly to confirm that the application is substantially similar to the materials that are currently on file.
This is Commissioner.
Jamie, I'm sorry. This is Commissioner Boda. Did you just say that the public hearing would be the same night as the receipt?
No. It would be established the night the application is for receipt.
Okay.
So say they submit in time for the application to be for receipt at the September 12th meeting. My recommendation would be that the public hearing be set for October 10th. But I think that could be established the night it's for receipt, since the commission already has a little bit of backstory on the application, if you will.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. By the way, for the record, I had the opportunity to review the last meeting, and I did understand what was going on quite readily. My question: why would there be any funds left over from the peer review? For the simple fact that the peer review is still going to be engaged in this process. We've already engaged them on this process. And if there's a new application coming forward, there's going to be changes to the existing application. So those questions, I'm sure there's going to be questions on that new application and that are not going to be addressed in the peer review. And that's my concern. So I'm not sure how we would, even think about returning any funds to them right now.
Jamie Frederick and Wetland Agent. So my thought process is that the peer review response was to cover an initial view and a secondary review, attendance at or a site visit and attendance at commission meetings. So that second review has not occurred yet, in addition to some of the meeting time. However, if this application is being withdrawn, it would be appropriate to return any unused funds because it's the end of this application. When a new application is submitted, I think, assuming it's, by and large the same application, it would be fair to carry over that RFP response to continue the review. And then, of course, as I stated earlier, if during that review there's additional concerns raised, it could be discussed whether additional peer review or complex application fees would be required.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I also think, given the fact that, it is a separate application that's going to be resubmitted, it's a lot cleaner, I think, to the extent that the only thing that we need to carry over is work done by the peer review folk that might be applicable to the new application. And that as the application then is reviewed by the peer review team and the commission, then we can determine if there is any additional funds to be added. But I think it keeps it cleaner with a fine break between the current application that is looking to be withdrawn and something that's going to be submitted in the future. And we don't also know the timing for sure. There's an estimate that we're going to deal with it in September, but that may not happen. And the longer this gets protracted, I think the more complicated it becomes.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a question. I think what you're proposing with the peer review makes a lot of sense. My question is, did you run it by Corporation Counsel, or do we legally have to put it out to bid if it's a new application, or can we run
it by numerous parties, including finance, selectman's office, and town council? Okay. And as long as all parties are open to moving forward in the manner outlined, then that's an appropriate way to move forward.
Okay. You didn't list Corporation Counsel, so I just wanted to make sure that they were in on it too. Thank you.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, I believe you also mentioned in the introductory comments that there was a request for a fee reduction. Do we have to deal with that separate from the public hearing?
So the fee reduction for this application, it would have to be considered prior to any withdrawal of the application. I don't think the commission wants to close the public hearing prior to a withdrawal of the application. So I would say that now would be the appropriate time to discuss that fee reduction request.
Do you have, this is Commissioner Bassman, do you have a recommendation regarding the fee reduction?
Not really. So what I have is, let me pull up the staff report I did real quick just to remind myself of what the application fee is. So the application fee, which has been submitted, is $11,743. Based on the increase in direct wetland impacts or activity proposed within wetlands, I believe that there's another 5,124, which would theoretically be submitted. Given that they're withdrawing the application, it doesn't make sense to pursue that at this time. There is also the complex application fee, which is the peer review fee, which is $8,800. Any unused portions of that gets returned to the applicant. As we discussed, if they withdraw the application, that any unused portion would get returned. And then we would anticipate essentially that amount being resubmitted for the new application. So essentially, we're looking at that $11,743 application fee and considering whether it's appropriate to grant a fee reduction. There was a letter submitted. It's Exhibit 22, kind of touching base on that request. And it was kind of asking, if I recall correctly, whether some of that application fee could be used as credit towards the peer review. This was briefly discussed by the commission previously, and the commission decided to table the matter. I guess the one piece of guidance that I have for the commission is that that 11,000, where did I put that note? The $11,743 application fee would cover about, sorry. I have too many notes in different places. Um, 294 hours of my time based simply on salary and the assumption that I only work 40 hours a week. So just to kind of help put it in context for the commission. In regards to, I believe the main thing that was raised as a concern is that the application fee is not clearly in excess of the cost for the town to review the application. So, I mean, that being said, there are other people that work on the application. There's Katie's time. There's the town engineer's time. There's, you know, any times I reach out to town council for guidance. And sometimes, you know, I touch base with planning and zoning. So,
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Is it normal that we ask for a fee reduction before there's an actual application submitted?
So this fee reduction would be for this application. And I've already talked with the applicant about the fact that a separate fee reduction could be considered for the new application. And typically speaking, when an application is resubmitted kind of in this context of being substantially the similar application in the near future, the commission has considered a fee reduction on that second application because the application fee has already been submitted for the first application. So I think this application fee reduction should be considered simply on the merits of the application at hand. Unless any commissioners have additional thoughts or comments that they would like to.
I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but technically the application has not been withdrawn yet.
Correct. So I don't know that you should consider that as far as the fee reduction.
Right, and that's what kind of concerns me. We're jumping ahead before we have, you know, if they want to come back at the next meeting after they withdraw the application and request the reduction, I don't have a problem. And I'm going to go on the record and state this: if they had all their ducks in a row, they wouldn't be withdrawing the application.
So this is Commissioner Boda. It's my understanding is that the goal tonight is to withdraw the application and resubmit and to submit a new application based on some of the new findings and some of the changes that they need to make, as well as provide the additional material that they haven't been able to. And so the purpose of tonight is to withdraw the application. They have already submitted, what, $11,743? And they previously asked for a fee reduction. And in order to close inland wetland 240202, we need to address this issue. Is that fair?
I think that it should be addressed on the record of this application, whether the commission feels that a fee reduction is warranted based on the merits of this application, not based on the fact that it's going to be withdrawn. That could be considered with a new submission. I think it, you know, whether or not the commission feels that $11,743 application fee with the addition of the complex application fee for the peer review is clearly in excess of the cost to review the application.
But this is Commissioner Boda, but we also can't consider a fee reduction on an application that's closed.
Correct.
So
Okay.
if the goal is for them to withdraw tonight, then we need to deal with it tonight before it's officially withdrawn.
Correct.
Otherwise, we can't take an action on an item that's closed.
Right.
So would
Jamie,
you pull up the request letter for the fee reduction so we can all look at it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, Jamie, is it possible to, this is Doug Anderson again. Is it possible to just carry this over to the new application without having to close it out? Since it's going to be literally the identical plan coming in, with the only variant being additional, wetland disturbance. As far as all the other disturbance calculations, I believe are identical. It's just the difference, the delta between the upland review disturbance versus the actual disturbance based on that increased in the southern, wetland boundary or northern wetland boundary. So, and as a matter of practicality and simple, and again, maybe procedurally this isn't possible, but even with the peer review aspect of it, really all we're technically doing with this whole thing is resetting the statutory time clock. The fact, yes, it is a new application because the time clock has expired, but materially is identical to where we are today with just a new application. So practically speaking, is there a way to just, instead of having to close things out and just carry that over to the new application, since that's basically what we're doing?
If you're comfortable with the $11,743 that you've submitted, essentially the commission cannot give you a refund for the application fee that you have submitted for this application after this application has been closed. So the commission could consider a fee reduction on that new application, but it wouldn't be able to say so does that make sense?
I guess the question would be, go ahead.
Plus we can't extend the public hearing.
What? I'm sorry?
The public hearing ends when?
The public hearing has to close this evening. The latest we could continue it is Saturday, which doesn't make sense.
Right. So tonight is the day that this thing has got to be closed. So as Commissioner Boda pointed out, we have to deal with this issue today, now.
Yes, unless the applicant
but the fact of the matter
that you're raising, Mr. Anderson.
But the fact of the matter is,
you're raising, Mr. Anderson.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I basically, again, just practically speaking, the only reason we're withdrawing is obviously because we statutorily have run out of time. Which, by the way, that statute is there to protect the applicant, right? And we would be happy to extend it, but statutorily we're not allowed to extend it. So now we're going to go back to square one and fill out another application, spend another $15,000 on top of the $20,000 that we've spent already for an application, and be in the same spot. It just, like, from this side of the table, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm just trying to talk through some practical aspect of it to see if there's some common ground that we're not looking for a free ride on the town or a free ride on the town's review of the application or your time or however that's calculated. We just want to be treated fairly, and that we're coming back to you with all the same stuff and, essentially the same plan with a reset on the time clock.
This is Commissioner Bassett, but I know that's the plan, but until we have that document in our hands, we can't assume that it's the same. So to the extent that we can close this out, and I'm sure that in the next application, there would be a request for fee reduction. And I think we would all assume that that's a fair ask. But I think the idea of right now returning any funds that somehow are in excess, if they are in excess,
Right.
is the
Of
way to
course.
close
No, I mean,
this
if they're
thing
not
out.
in excess, they're not in excess. We get that aspect of it. So, I mean, what does that process look like? Is there like an accounting of time that people, that you put together to say, okay, this is what the town has expended? Or how do you even, we don't even know how to even request for the fee reduction. We just made it based on your requirements. There's no process of how or why that should be reduced other than is it excessive for the amount of work that is required? Yes or no? We don't know because we don't know what the timeline is. So, until you really look at that, how do you even make an intelligent decision about it?
This
Jamie,
is
do you have any?
I'm curious, Jamie, is there a mechanism by which we can, if they've already submitted the $11,743 and they have every intention to submit a new application, is there a mechanism by which we can hold on to this 743 and just essentially act as a bank account until they submit?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I did briefly discuss this with town council, and we were talking about multiple aspects of the application, but my understanding was that he also was of the opinion that a fee reduction request for this application would have to be considered prior to the closing of this application.
Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett, to kind of clarify things, essentially what it sounds like to me is that if he wants a fee reduction, the time to do it would actually be when he submits the next application, because I think, Doug, you said, and that essentially would kind of, so instead of us refunding you and then you paying us, money again, you would ask for the fee reduction with the next application, and then it would be kind of processed in that bank account way that Boda was referring to.
Yeah, I mean, listen, our preference is to whatever money we paid in just to keep in, right? Not have to try and make a decision or a determination of how much was spent or where we could resubmit. Then you could, again, globally look at the whole picture of what's coming in front of you at the new application, which is basically going to be the same thing that's in the file right now with additional wetland planting information and so forth. And, make the decision based on that. We're fine with that. Keep the money there and look at it globally between what's been spent to date, legitimately, and what we have to spend to get to the finish line if we could ever get there. And then that would be either money that would come back or more money we would have to pay, commensurate with, the work scope that's required to review this application 2 times.
Right. So I think, with the additional disturbance that you have, you're actually short $5,124. So that might have to be submitted with the next application because the whole fee wasn't submitted. But if you ask for the, fee request at the next application when it's received, does that make sense, Jamie?
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I think now we've got kind of 3 topics at hand. So as far as the fee reduction goes, there's 2 different considerations. There's whether or not the current application fee should be considered to be reduced simply on the merits of this application. That would be considered tonight. The second is whether or not or how much the application fee on the resubmission should be reduced, and that would be a discussion for any new applications. And I suppose the new question or new point brought up is on a new submission, normally the commission does not review an application if the application fee has not been submitted. As Katie has raised, one option would be to have them, if they're planning on submitting a fee reduction request, submit the difference in the application fee from this application to what the new application would be with that fee reduction request, then the commission can consider the fee at that time for that new application. And then if there's additional funds to be submitted, they can be submitted, and or if there's funds to be returned, they can be returned.
Right. So my suggestion would be for them to withdraw their fee reduction request for this application, and then it will just be addressed with the next application.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. The only disclaimer I have on that is that the fee reduction between the two applications would not be able to be reduced below this application fee as it currently stands and the $60 deep application fee for the new application. So essentially the question before the commission is whether that application fee, it seems to be clearly in excess of the cost to review by the town. And or the applicant could withdraw his request and submit one with the new application.
I mean, would it, Doug Anderson again for the record, would it based on the fact that would that allow you time to say, okay, how much have we spent, you know, be able to look at where we are today, right? So when we do make this request, because we're really, initially, the initial request is a blind request, right? You make the request in the beginning, you don't know where it's going to go. Here we are, you know, at the end of the road. So it would, you know, to me, it would be a prudent way to do it to say, okay, we've spent X amount of dollars on, because if we're going to be filling out the same application with the same criteria, plus this additional, you know, just wetland disturbance area, whatever that number is, we had some dialogue on that, but and then be able to either adjust that application based on, you know, what we've spent to date, and or do we have to, you know, have a fee request at that point in time, since you're basically duplicating the existing application and all the fees that are associated with it. So doing the math, basically, you know, you're talking 11,000 plus the peer review, right? That was, whether that's $9,000 or $8,000, and now potentially another 15,000. So we're talking $35,000 in fees, and we haven't even come to the threshold yet. So that's the part that's, and to try and make a decision on what the real cost of reviewing this application is when it hasn't happened doesn't make any sense to me. So that's, you know, I'm not trying to be difficult here, but I'm just trying to find some reason with respect to the, you know, the cost of just applying for this.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. With all due respect, Mr. Anderson, and believe me, I feel your pain and I understand your trials and tribulations, but you have to also look at it on our standpoint of view. You submitted an application. We had a public hearing. The application, unfortunately, isn't complete, or there has to be other conditions that have to be met. And we did not create the statutory limit. Now, at this time, you're asking us to make a crystal ball decision on what the fee can be. We're not here to, you know, take hard-earned money or hurt your situation. But me as a commissioner, I would not vote to reduce the fee on this particular application. I would entertain the idea for your future application of what has been paid in. But at this stage, this application has been submitted. You want to close it and restart the clock, and that's how we should approach this particular situation. We're here to work together, but you know, we don't have a crystal ball. And
no, I understand that, and we're not asking for any handouts. I think what we're saying is, you know, we understand that the application fee is supposed to represent cost to review an application, pay staff, pay town council, whoever it may be. We get that. We're not looking for a free ride, nor expect a free ride. And because we statutorily went past the time limits, were the result of peer review dialogue that we had to do, deficiencies we had, things that came up, additional wetlands that weren't there originally on the original approval. So, you know, that's just the dynamics of real estate development. We get that aspect of it, right? So the fact that we ran out of time statutorily, in my mind, is a technical thing, right? So it's a technical. When we come back to you in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whenever that is, we're back to you with the same. We're back to you with the same plan, the same people, the same player. Everything's the same, right? So
yeah, but it actually isn't, because there's additional wetlands that are under disturbance.
Which is what we have submitted. It's been submitted because we've added the wetlands and we've made modifications to that based on the peer review. So understand, yes, there's more wetlands. We've accommodated for that. We've redesigned around it. That's been submitted, but there's obviously, it's not a matter of just submitting, which, it's questions and answers from you people, additional peer review, things of that nature, all stuff that could have happened. If we have the ability to extend this hearing, which we offered to do, but statutorily, you guys couldn't do it. So that's fine. We get that part of it. That's where we are with it. So now we're going to go back, make a whole new application with the same information, right? So that, to me, that's the part. I have no problem looking at the other application, because to your point, I agree. You're looking at something that you don't have all the facts as far as the numbers go. You don't know how much time the staff spent on it and so forth. We get it. And you spent time on it, and we didn't get to the finish line. So that obviously is money that's gone. But if there's money left over with this new application, then I'm a fan of looking at it globally. Same thing with the peer review, whether that just carries over, and if they can get it done in one more meeting, and because basically, remember, all these new plans are the result of the peer reviews dialogue between our engineers and scientists to come to a resolution or an agreed plan of what should be done. So this is all reactive on our part to the comments and concerns of the peer review.
Jamie, Frederick, and the Wetland Agent Woman. Let me just jump in for a second here. So it sounds like the main concern is having credit for the future application. And I think that this was kind of briefly discussed earlier on in the process. So one option is for the commission to make a determination that they're not granting a fee reduction on this application, if that's how the commission feels it's appropriate to proceed. But you can, you could offer potentially to the applicant that as the application fee for this application directly relates to the new application, you could potentially offer that you would likely be willing to consider that as a fee reduction, and have the applicant submit, again, the difference of application fees. So based on what I have seen for the revised plans, there would be an increase in the Schedule A fee that would be required. A new deep fee would be required because we're required to send that to the state with each application. And then when that new application is received and you actually have the chance to review those application materials, you can review the fee reduction request associated with that, and perhaps just require that upfront, the difference in that deep fee be submitted. And then you could confirm whether or not that application fee is appropriate. And if additional funds are required, they could be submitted. And if they wanted to request an additional fee reduction for whatever reason, they could put that forth for your consideration. But I think it's certainly at minimum, you would want to have that difference in application fee and the new deep fee submitted.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm fine with that theory.
What's really before the commission right now is whether there should be a fee reduction for this application based on the fee submitted. And I think it would be within historic. I don't think it would be out of place to give the applicant a little bit of guidance. But again, you can't obviously commit to anything without seeing the new application.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think the other piece that we typically have when discussing fee application reduction is an estimate of office time and like you enumerated, it's not just your time and Katie's time, but then town engineer and so I do think it makes I think it's very practical to leave the fee alone on this application. And then with the next application, they can put in for a fee reduction. And we may be able to do that there, but I'm not really sure how to tackle a fee reduction on this particular application. And we have recent precedent for that with the East Main Street. So where it was like, look, they just paid for this like 3 months ago. So that's where I am. I think Mr. Anderson, one of the areas where I'm fuzzy on is it's not like we can at that point the fee that you would have to submit, it could be reduced, but I don't know that you'll, once you've submitted, you've this 11,743, unless we used some of the money that's sitting from this fee to pay the peer review. I don't know how some of that money gets back to you. Does that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my point is that I mean, the peer review we also paid separately, so that was $8,000 or $9,000, whatever the total was, plus the original fee of 11. So we're into it for $20,000 so far. Let's just say as far as application fees. So the way I look at it, if we're going to submit a new application, I think we're going to be back to square zero. We're going to start at the top of the fee schedule and submit at least another $11,000 plus the additional disturbed area of another 5,000. So that's going to be another 15,000 on top of the 11 and the 8. Right. Assuming that, and then maybe more peer review. So now you're up to, like I said, $35,000 in fees to, essentially hear the same application again. So,
but I guess where I'm just a little fuzzy is, again, this is Commissioner Boda, like, let's set the peer review aside. Let's say with the next application, we're like, yeah, man, they just paid for this application at 11,743. Let's waive everything but the deep fee. You still have paid 11,743.
Right.
I don't know. We can't get below that. Do you know
right,
what I mean?
No, I get that. No, I understand that. I understand that part of it. No, that's why I said we'd be just happy to leave the money there, and then whatever is a reasonable additional fee or whatever it may be, or maybe that's the fee, total fee when it's all looked at. I don't know, but to me, that's a reasonable way to do it. But the way I understand it, if it's a new application, we got to go back to zero and reapply, and then put and recalculate all those numbers all over again. So, unless I'm interpreting that incorrectly.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I don't think we can bind ourselves to what we're going to do with the next application other than to say that we will consider a fee reduction when the new application is brought. Because we don't, you're telling us what you say it's going to be, but we don't know for sure until we see it, what exactly it is. And then there's still the other $5,000, which it's my understanding, if you were proceeding with this application, you would owe on top of it, but it hasn't been paid yet. So I think that that's the only thing we have any power to say, since you didn't complete the application. Maybe we won't collect that, but that will be part of the calculation for the new application, as I understand the way our regulations and our fee schedules are. And then as far as the $8,800 for the peer review, however much of that is left over, was to be returned to you when, if any of it was unused, when the application process was complete. So that obviously we have power to go back to the peer review and find out what exactly the bill is and return that, because we're supposed to. But I'm not willing to bind this commission to anything in the future that we haven't seen.
This is Commissioner Basserman. I guess we've had a considerable discussion about the fee. I'm going to make a motion that the commission deny the request for a fee reduction for application 240202, with the understanding that if a similar application is received within a reasonable time frame, that the commission will consider the work that has been done on 240202 in establishing a new application fee.
This is Commissioner Boda. I will second that very gladly. Thank you.
We're going to take a vote on that. Commissioner Papantonis,
Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Gokowski,
Commissioner Gokowski, aye.
Commissioner Begeman,
Commissioner Begemon, aye.
Commissioner Armrod.
Commissioner Ormrod, I'll remain recused from this inland wetland 24202.
You're getting that, man. I'm sorry. Commissioner Boda,
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Finaro,
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. Look forward to seeing that application, hopefully in September.
Okay, thanks for your time.
One
Appreciate it.
minute, real quick, before we move on.
Oh, we got to do the other thing, the public
Our-
hearing. We need to close that.
We're in the public hearing, so confirmation, is the applicant withdrawing the application?
Yes, Jamie, I'll send you an email confirming that. But yes, we are withdrawing the application, without prejudice, and we'll be back at the next available meeting.
Okay.
Do you want to vote to close the public hearing?
I think that do we need a motion?
think
Or
as
do we
the
just close it?
application has been withdrawn, that closes the public hearing.
Oh,
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I think that's correct on Robert's rules. It's withdrawn. We have nothing to act on.
great. Look to see you again, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Jamie, do you want me to hang, or you want to wait till the cease and correct stuff? Or
Yeah, hold on until we get to that item, please.
okay, all right. I'll just mute out and I'll be here. Okay, thank you.
Next up, application for review in wetland 240701 34 Howard Avenue, retaining wall, front walk, parking area, and landscaping. Jamie, any new materials since the last discussion on this item?
Yeah, Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. We've received new plans, I believe this Monday, end of the day, and I think there were some minor modifications made Tuesday. I have not had the time. I was hoping to have to look at those materials. However, we do have the application team present, and I know that they've involved an engineer in some of the drainage concerns. So I think without further ado, I would hand it over to the applicant.
Sounds like a plan. Who wants to speak first for the applicant here?
Hi, my name is Marcy Paluzzi. I spoke last week. I'm a licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. On the call, I believe, is Robert Sunks, and I haven't verified. There he is. I see him online. He can answer any questions relating to the engineering, the history of the project, or stormwater calculations. I'm sorry, my computer is not doing what I want it to do. I can share my screen if that would be possible.
Yes, but give me a second. I don't think I have it. Oh yeah, you should be good.
Okay, hopefully this is the right thing to share. Okay. This is where I get a little bit lost. Just bear with me, please. Hopefully, can you see that? This is substantially the page that has changed. I adjusted the retaining wall to reflect more accurately the grades. Please excuse the dog who's barking out the window. And tried to, and created another elevation along the length of the wall so that you could get a sense of how the wall was changing with the grade. One of the comments that came back from the engineer was about roof drainage. Because this application is only seeking to address and clean up what's in the front of the house, not anything behind the house, because there was quite a bit of litigation that hasn't been completely finished yet. This application is only addressing the front of the house. The primary addition, I'm sorry about the dog, the primary addition with the roof leader is to not tie it behind the drain, not tie it behind the drainage of the wall, but to take it through the wall, take it, I'm sorry, to take it through the wall to a stone pad area that will help absorb, give the water from the roof a chance to be absorbed. Stop. To give the water a chance to be absorbed on the underneath the stone. That would be like a 3 to 4 inch stone open belly that we would put in the lawn as a type of drainage retention area. And then if the storm was excessive, then the water would jump over the curb and go down the driveway towards Howard as it does now. And would it then, if we did a Belgian block apron, have another chance to either be slowed or absorbed in that last piece. The only water that would go into this smaller area would be from behind the roof drain, which is a very small surface area of, from the landscaping. We don't expect that to catch any water from the pipe behind the wall, but it's just best practice to have a pipe behind the wall, even though the wall is really only 1'9" at its maximum height. If you could see along here, this cross section, the highest part is about 10 feet off the house. This wall along the front of the house would basically be a freestanding garden wall to just screen the concrete at the house and the plantings to give a continuous look to the sidewall. And then in front of that is the little belly and the curb and then the grade. And you can see that the wall steps from 1'9" to 1'4" to 9 inches, right about where elevation 39 is, would be a very, 9-inch type of almost a secondary curb. But that's really the intent of that, is to follow the rise of the driveway. Rob and I were out this afternoon looking at this pad, looking at the survey that was submitted has additional spot elevations on it. But this pad is basically along this wall. It's just over 39. And there's a pipe that was like an electrical pipe. And then along this wall of the neighbors, this is all overburden. I don't know if you can follow my my cursor, but at about this point of the house is at elevation 42, and it's overburdened this way, and it looks to be loose rock material and whatnot. And so our intent would be to pull that out as best we can to keep it at 39 all the way across, and then continue it with the normal grade parallel to the driveway as we plant the screening for the trees. So it's one of those things that it's going to be a little difficult to know what's behind this. This is completely overgrown here, to know exactly what we're going to find as far as material. But we've added trying to create best management practices on this, we've added silt fence on this side, and we can certainly include a hay bale to prevent any water from going behind the wall. That's really the most important thing to note from this application. And any minor adjustments to grading, because we don't know where we're going to hit potentially ledge in the front, we would revisit with the commission. But we've the driveway right now raises about at 8%. We'd like to flatten it to the greatest extent possible to tie into the road a little bit more smoothly, and that's really the reason for this smallish wall along here that we're working with. So are there any questions? Would this help you?
Excuse me, Marcy, this is Commissioner Goklowski. You mentioned the driveway a couple times in your statement. Does your client have a driveway on their property? I don't recall a formal driveway on their property, or are you referring to the neighbors?
There's no, the point of this application is to create driveways right now, they're basically parking on the lawn in both locations. There's no room on the street to park parallel to the street. There's
Right.
no room to get around. So the point of this application is to create areas for a small car that is an electric car on this side and a truck that's on this side. Obviously, per the engineer's comments, we have to stay outside of the right of way, which we would do. And we're limited by the fact that the driveway is rising, the neighbor's driveway is rising and has created overburden along the side. And so all we can do now is respond to what our existing condition is, not what they may do in the future, as best we can. And the best way to grade for the driveway here and control the water off of the roof is to, create a stone area that can hold some water and slow it down to not increase any water going off the site that occurs now, and to, provide a planted buffer where that, and to try to minimize that slope. Because right now, up by here, this slope could potentially be 2-to-1, which isn't even what's allowable in zoning. So some of the wall is to correct and to make the side slope more conforming to zoning standards and to give a flatter area for the evergreens to grow in.
Okay. What type of material are you using for the driveway? Paved, gravel, or tar?
So the thought that would be that the curb would be a Belgian block curb from the walkway to the wall. On one side, so you have the plantings, a freestanding garden wall that would be 2 feet, the stone area to catch any weepage that might come through the wall, or this piped area from the roof drain, which would be 3 to 4 inch stone, and then the Belgian block curb, asphalt, and then a Belgian block apron. So while this is impervious, the Belgian block apron and the stone is meant to control any increase in runoff that then goes down the hill.
Okay.
And it's possible that some of this small pad area where the end of the wall ties out of might catch any excess water as well. But
This is Commissioner Begemon. Two questions. First, the other driveway is also the same, paved and Belgian block?
it has a small Belgian block apron, and it's a concrete paver driveway.
Concrete paver. And then can you just explain briefly, what does overburden mean?
So basically, I'm not sure when this was built, but it's very clear by the landscape that when they raised the road, I believe Rob mentioned to me this afternoon that their interest to getting around the house and to keep it at grade was they thought that they needed to access the house with minimal steps, and so to do that, they raised the road through here and filled back here, and in so doing, if our existing grade is 39 here and they're grading it up, you're right at this point of the house where the 100-foot red line is. You've got a 2-foot difference. Well, that 2 feet coming from the driveway at 40 has to be filled in somehow and go down to 39. And that's what I'm calling the overburden. It's a side slope on the neighbor's driveway. And so by adding the small wall, we minimize a 2-to-1 slope to a flatter slope, which works with the existing condition that we have there. It allows us to plant some trees and clean up the vegetation, because it's quite possible that some of this is just, it looked like some of it was just open stone, not even, established earth. Like a pile of rocks would be, yeah.
This is Commissioner Bodo. So Jamie, I was looking at the comments, your comments from earlier in July. Is there anything that you feel hasn't been addressed that we're missing? This seems pretty complete.
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. I honestly have not fully reviewed the materials, so I can't answer that. One of my biggest concerns was erosion controls to protect the wetland located to the rear. That has been added to the plans. One of my other concerns was some of the grading information was a little bit confusing and or contradictory. So making sure it was very clear and understood which way various areas was going to drain. And then this was provided to the town engineer to review, particularly regarding drainage going towards the town right of way. Materials were submitted this week. The town engineer is out this week, so they have not had a chance to review these materials at all. So I'm not sure if they would have any additional
Would we
comments.
be, this is Commissioner Boda, would we be able to, I mean, I think based on what I'm seeing, would we be able to move to an agent approval at this point, since we're not talking about direct impacts? And then if you're taking a second look at it and the engineer, you're able to go ahead and move move them forward and not wait until next month. But if there was something glaring that we were missing, you could bring it back. Because I mean, it looks okay to me, but
Yes, that's how the commission wants to proceed. I think given the fact that the area is draining away from the wetland and that they do have erosion controls for any grade changes during construction that might result in drainage, minor amounts of drainage going towards the rear of the property.
This is Commissioner Basserman. Jamie, you seem a tad reluctant, and I'm concerned about that.
I think my reluctance stems mostly from the reaction at the last meeting. And then I guess I just want to make sure that the commission is generally of the same opinion. I guess the biggest thing, I honestly have not read the comment letter yet, so that's one of the reasons why I say I cannot say whether or not everything's been addressed. I've only glanced at the site plans, and I have had a conversation with Marcy on, the site plan, the intention of the site plan, and I understand that there are complications a little bit with, knowing what the full extent of what is. I'm just going to screen share real quick part of the comment letter. So I'm going to steal it away.
Yep. You can stop.
No, I have the power to steal. So can everyone see a picture?
Yes.
Okay. So you can see the driveway on the neighboring property. You can see cars parked kind of in the area that they're proposing a driveway. And then this is that slope area that they're looking to kind of regrade and address with a retaining wall. So I guess one of the potential concerns I have, and again, I've not reviewed this to the level I was hoping to before this evening, it just ran out of time, would be that the grading information isn't what we would typically look for in an application where we were particularly concerned with wetland impacts. So, I mean, I think there's a different level of information that the commission sometimes requires depending on what is being conducted. The intent of the grading has been clearly explained to me. I'm just not necessarily sure it's clearly shown on the site plan. And I understand the challenges of doing that. So I'm just gonna pull the site plan real quick so particularly to that point, there's this 42-foot high spot. And my understanding is that they're looking to kind of bring the grade down in this area, but that's not shown on the site plan. So I guess my question for the commission is, are you okay with that knowledge? Do you think it needs to be addressed in the application materials, if not on the site plan in a narrative? And maybe it is in the comment letter. Again, I've not been able to fully read it.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Based on the information, I personally don't have a problem with moving forward with having the agent review or approval, because in Jamie's past practices, if she felt there was an issue that needed to be brought before the commission before she approved something, she would bring it to us. So at this stage of the game, I don't have a problem based on the information that was given and what I've reviewed in the last 24 hours, to move forward with having an agent approval. And if there's an issue, bring it back to the commission.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. Jamie, I think that what you're talking about, there's a comment here that Rob Sonicson is going to be here tonight to address, and I think it's exactly what you were talking about, but I may be wrong.
This is Rob Sonicson. I am here, and I've reviewed the plans, and the changes are really born from some of my suggestions with regard to modifications from the previous plan, and minimizing the wall, the extent of the wall and the height of the wall to the extent that we can. And also, I think that what we've been working with is and this goes back to the previous application for 38 Howard Avenue. The front yard of 34 Howard Avenue has always drained toward Howard Avenue, toward the southeast. That's the natural way that the site drains. And what our goal was to not increase the amount of runoff that's coming from the site onto Howard Avenue, but to maintain the status quo. And I think that the features that Marcy and I came up with really address that. And the other thing was the concern with the fact that previously a roof runoff leader was tied into a drainage pipe that's proposed to be behind the retaining wall. And I agree that the retaining wall drainage should be in place for the retaining wall drainage. Every detail shows that it's for drainage behind the wall. And so we've eliminated the roof leader into the storm drainage behind the wall. And now we're putting it into a more natural runoff feature in front of it. So what I said was, we want to minimize to the extent that we can, and we want to use best management practices to assure that we're not increasing runoff that's getting to Howard Avenue. And I think that we're going to be maintaining the status quo with the plan that's before you tonight. And, I'd be happy to work with Jamie along with Marcy to come up with any other fine tuning that staff thinks is appropriate.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Boda. So in the instances of agent approval, if there was a need for a revision on a plan, that could still be a condition of agent approval. Could it still be a condition of agent approval in the same way that we have conditions of approval as a commission? Or would you just say, change this, and then you can, then you would issue a permit?
So I'm not sure I understand your question, so I'm going to try and address.
So if like sometimes when we do approvals, we say, okay, you can have your approval. One condition is that, let's say your such and such flag is missing, but it really needs to be on there for our record, our long-term record keeping. And we would do a condition of approval. When you do an agent approval, is it that you say, yes, you can have your permit, you need to change this detail on your plan? Or do you say, change this detail on your plan, once I see it, now you can have your permit?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. For something like that, I would probably have them do it before I made a decision, just because of the nature of the type of approval. However, I do oftentimes have conditions of approval on an agent review. They're just usually not in regards to application materials or site plan details. So I think
can you give an example?
There's two routes here. So this application is for review. So the commission could act on the application. I have not prepared a staff report because I have not fully reviewed it. And to that end, I don't know if the commission wants to wait until I fully review it. Alternatively, the commission can give me some additional time to review it. If you, as a commission, do not have additional concerns and feel it's appropriate for agent of review, I can review it. I can have the town engineer review it to make sure there's no additional comments that we might want to consider from a wetland standpoint. And then I could process it administratively. So potential conditions of approval that I might have would be, the inspections, erosion control inspection, final inspection, whatever might be pertinent to the application. Another one might be that an as-built at the end, depending on what it is. I don't know that that would necessarily be required here. Sometimes I'll specify about, revegetating, or like with pools, we have a standard condition that I throw on that, there should be no discharge of water within 50 feet of a wetland. So, I mean, I have conditions. They're usually just not, we don't want to make you come back to another meeting. So make sure you add it to the plan. They can submit, if it's something minor, they can submit it pretty easily. So I wouldn't normally have it be any modification type stuff would probably just be.
This is Commissioner Begemon. I'm not sure if there's a rush to approve this, or a perceived need to approve this tonight, but my thinking is that given the history of the next door property, why don't we bring this back in 2 weeks and have had Jamie had all the time, have had maybe that 42.5, whatever that is, more detail on the grading, and have the whole commission approve it. That's my thinking. With the staff report at the next meeting.
Can you make that a motion?
I don't know that it needs to be a motion, but Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, I would just say to that end, we could clarify for the applicant whether or not we believe, particularly the engineer needs to attend that next meeting. It sounds like at this point the commission doesn't necessarily have any additional questions for him, and if there are any further questions, they would possibly be from town engineering comments, which wouldn't necessarily need to involve the commission. So I guess what I'm just saying is to try and minimize, unnecessary attendance at the meeting. Do you think that the engineer should plan to attend that next meeting as well, or do you think that that's not needed?
This is Commissioner Begemon. If you're working with them between now and then, and your questions have been answered, then I would say no. And if it went the other way and more questions come up, then yes.
That seems reasonable.
Jamie, Commissioner Goklowski here. These plans, so I have a clear understanding, are showing no direct impact to any of the existing inland wetlands in the area. Is that correct?
I would say that's correct. There's no activity proposed within a wetland or water course. So this red line, is everyone still seeing my screen, or am I talking about things you
Yeah.
can't see? So this dashed red line is the 100-foot upland review area. The closest proposed activity is at the front edge of that, I believe I said AC pad. There's a concrete pad off the side of the house on this front corner. So probably if I had to ballpark it, with this being 50 and 100, about 80-ish feet away from the off-site water course.
Okay, thank you.
So, like I said, my primary concern with the plans we had last time was regarding erosion controls to make sure that there would be no impact. So,
And then this Commissioner Papantonis, just a question. And did I read this correctly that they still have to go to planning or to zoning because there's 2 driveways and they're only allowed to have 1?
I believe a variance would be required for the 2 driveways.
Okay, but that's not our issue, obviously.
Not our issue. And then I think they probably, I don't know, they might need planning and zoning special exception approval, but they can check with planning and zoning on that.
So is there a chance that it would come back to us after planning and zoning anyway?
I mean, there's always a minor chance. I guess probably the biggest hurdle would be whether or not they get the variance for the 2 driveways. Oftentimes people will seek variances before coming to inland wetlands, but the applicant has the choice of choosing which route they want to take.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Bassman. Does any commissioner feel that it's compelled them to act this evening as opposed to Commissioner Begabid's proposal of waiting 2 weeks for a full review and then making a decision? All right, so it sounds like with the silence that we'll deal with this 2 weeks from tonight.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent.
After staff has had a chance to review.
It is 3 weeks. We do have an extra week this month, so just for clarification, it would be the September 12th meeting.
September 12th. Is that the date?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is the last meeting that's going to be continued to without extensions, which should certainly be able to be wrapped up at that time. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Jamie.
All right, into enforcement.
I'm sorry, we have
Hey, Jamie. Yeah, sorry, it's Stephen Diaz Romero, 3 Howard, the owner. Do my experts and everything need to come next meeting as well, or because that's kind of my concern? Because I had them here tonight. I'd hate to have to have them come back.
Sure. So we talked about the engineer. As far as the landscape architect, is the commission fair with applying, or does the commission think it's fair to apply the same logic regarding to that professional as well? That if the questions have been answered, and that I don't foresee new questions being raised, that I can tell the owner they don't need to have their professionals attend. I would say that somebody should be present, and that could theoretically be the owner, just in case there's any comments or questions that come up to generally speak to the application. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I just want to make sure I don't have to. I mean, I'll be there.
Understood.
Make sure experts don't have to be there, unless they need to. So
I will respond to that after we've kind of addressed those couple minor concerns, and we've had comments from the town engineer.
Okay, thanks.
Sounds like the commission's comfortable with me making that judgment call.
Yes. Enforcement. 22 CC 240701 157 Beacon Hill Road, removal vegetation disturbance within the wetland and adjacent upland area, which is continued from the hearing of July 11th, 2024. We have updated material on this, Jamie, or?
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. So this was, as you stated, continued from July 11th. I did go out to the site today just to make sure that there were no new or further concerns that maybe needed to be addressed sooner rather than later. As you're all aware, at this point, the application for the subject property has been withdrawn, but there is an intention to resubmit an application. When I went out to the site today, the disturbed area has by and large been revegetated. I am not great with sedges, grasses, and herbaceous vegetation, so I cannot tell you what is growing there specifically. But I can tell you it is stabilized and it is vegetated. So I don't have any immediate concerns. If you want, I can show you those pictures real quick. So I think there's two main courses of action the commission could take. We could move forward with further discussion and make a motion on whether or not to uphold the cease and correct order, or potentially continue the show cause hearing to either the September 12th or September 26th meeting, when hopefully a new application has been submitted. I would suggest one of those two meetings, because if an application hasn't been submitted, you probably want to take another closer look at timelines. I think so. My two concerns with this is, I think the commission is going to want a mitigation restoration plan, and then whether or not there was immediate concerns that the soil scientist or should comment on for implementation this fall growing season or planting season. Like I said, the site is revegetated, so I don't think there's any immediate steps that need to be taken. So I guess the question for the commission is, do you think it is worth moving forward and setting timelines and expectations at this time, or waiting and seeing when a new application is submitted and then repicking this up?
This is Commissioner Bassman. I think the latter of the two makes the most sense. You don't want to close it out.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with that.
And you want to see what the new application does in reference to 240701, and whether, mitigation is included in that application or not. And if not, then this lives on and we deal with it at that time. That would be my
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent, just for clarification for all. I think it would be pertinent for the commission to consider requiring a restoration plan, approving a restoration plan, and then leaving the cease and correct order in place until that plan has been implemented and any associated monitoring has been completed. So, I mean, that would be essentially be the decision I would recommend for tonight if the commission felt like making a decision, or it would be the general guidance I would give when the commission picks this back up after theoretically a plan may have been submitted.
Jamie, Commissioner Gopowski, since they have technically withdrawn the application, where does that leave the commission on this particular situation?
Right. So currently the cease and correct order is a little bit open-ended, and I'll pull it up real quick so that everyone can take a look at it. So essentially the three requirements of the cease and correct order were to contact the office. That was done. Get the new wetland flags located. That has been done at this point. The latest latest application, latest site plan submission for the application, which has since been withdrawn, but we do have that information now in our records. And then 3 is the commission will review the violation and may require a restoration plan for all or some of the unpermitted activity. If a restoration plan is required, the commission will determine what information is required, what professionals may need to be involved in the planning process, and when the plan must be submitted to the commission. So that would be the piece to potentially elaborate on.
So this is Commissioner Papantonis. I have a suggestion or maybe a proposal. Can we table this and strongly recommend to the applicant that if they submit a new application that they include a restoration plan?
Yes. So absolutely, the decision does not have to be made this evening. As part of the cease and correct order process, there is a show cause hearing. So I do think that it is pertinent to state when it's being tabled to.
Oh, all right. Again, Commissioner Papantonis, so can we table it for a month and then so that if there's no application submitted in the month, we could address it then? Would that be too ambitious or appropriate with your knowledge of the way these go?
It's my understanding that the applicant is looking to submit an application hopefully for the next meeting. So I think a month would be sufficient to have received an application for the commission to kind of take a look at those materials, and at the second meeting in September to have an understanding of whether that is likely to satisfy what you're looking for, or if you're looking for more information. And I will just comment that in the application materials that were submitted last week, the area was identified for restoration. There was not information on how that restoration would be established, but my understanding that is something that they would be looking to include in the new application. So theoretically, the new application could achieve what the commission would be looking for in item number 3.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. To be on the cautious side, would it be in our best interest to require them to put forth a restoration plan on this particular violation, so it will cover us even in the event that they do provide a new application? And you just stated that they didn't really have a plan for restoration on it, and this would just reiterate the fact that they have to include a restoration plan on the new application.
So if the commission would like, I could send a follow-up letter indicating that the item is being tabled and continued to the September 26th meeting.
26.
I'm just thinking, okay, we'll go with this and then I'll follow up and let that. And that the commission has discussed that a restoration plan would be required, that they're aware that an application is likely forthcoming and are willing to see if that includes a restoration plan that could be considered in the context of satisfying the order.
Commissioner Papantonis, how about this? Continued till the September 26th meeting with the expectation of a restoration plan. However, we will consider a restoration plan with the application if that comes sooner.
Yeah, okay. I like that wording better.
With
the rest, so a restoration plan per item number 3 shall be submitted by September 26th.
And a restoration plan, if a new application is made on or before that date, that includes a restoration plan, we will consider that or we may, because if we don't, what if we don't approve the new
Sure,
plan, or
absolutely.
that could take like 6 months again. So
Yeah. There has kind of been a past practice in these situations that if there's no immediate pressing concerns and an application is being submitted that might satisfy the order, that the commission will review that application and then pick up the order upon review of that application. So that would kind of be my recommendation. But I do think, as far as expressing the commission's concern in addressing this order, sending something about submitting a restoration plan is pertinent. I guess the one follow-up thought I have is, and again, we have no idea what will actually happen, best intentions and all. But if the applicant submits for receipt at the September 12th meeting, I was recommending that the public hearing be scheduled for the October 10th meeting. So to that point, I don't know if we would want to consider continuing this item to October 10th so that they and their professionals would not have to attend 3 meetings in a row.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Do you need a motion for that, Jamie?
I don't think so, since you're not making a decision on the order, you're just providing additional.
But this Commissioner Bassman, we are agreeing to continue the show cause hearing, right, until the October 10th meeting.
Yeah, I think that can be a general consensus. If you really want to make a motion, I'll never really tell you you can't. However, before you do make a motion, I would perhaps just open up the floor, given that it is a show cause hearing, to see if the owner/representative has any comments, questions, things they want to add.
This is Doug Anderson for the record. So I think when you do look at the information that was submitted, there is a whole new restoration plan for that northern wetland, which will also include, a detailed planting plan from George Logan, and a revised grading plan, and a revised, some additional work scope in that area. So that is in process and or mostly done as far as a grading plan and a grading and concept plan. That's just a matter of getting the plant counts and what they're proposing for plants.
Okay, so we've anybody have issue with continuing CC 240701 until the October 10th meeting? Great.
Let the record show commissioners are shaking their head no.
Okay, NOV 9 High Plains Road.
Thank you.
Regarding resulting in sedimentation of the pond located on the property known as Hickory Hill Lane. Jamie, I know that you've been out there. What's going on?
Jamie Frederick, Inland Wetland Agent. So this occurred first day of my vacation, so I didn't hear about it until almost a week and a half after it happened. However, the zoning enforcement officer went out, and Katie was in communications with them in regards to potential wetland concerns, and Katie did issue a notice of violation, and I believe we had the property owner. I also requested that the contractor and the property owner for the ponds that were impacted attend this meeting. So I'm not entirely sure who's here. I do see the property owner that was issued the notice of violation is with us. Essentially what happened was The yard was kind of being cleaned up and regraded, or essentially that's what the project evolved into. And the contractor did not install any erosion controls. There is a catch basin in the street immediately in front of the property that drains to these ponds on the property known as 48 Degree Hill. And sediment got into the stormwater system and into the ponds. So notice of violation was issued, requested to install erosion controls, which were being installed when the zoning enforcement officer went out to inspect the site, and have had some minor improvements made per request of the zoning enforcement officer and myself. I did drive by the site this past Monday, curious as to whether or not the ponds had cleared up from when I was out on the site the previous Thursday. And they were actually looking more turbid. I believe that the stormwater going through the stormwater system essentially resuspended the sediment that had settled on the bottom of the ponds. I don't believe that any new sediment was getting into the ponds because of the erosion controls. So there was a silt fence installed, reinforced with hay bales in a couple of locations, and inlet protection was put in the catch basin. So I do have photos from when the zoning enforcement officer went out, when I went out the first time to view the ponds, and then when I did a drive-by inspection most recently. I did have some brief conversations with the property owner about the fact that the commission might require some investigation work be completed to see whether it's appropriate to have any restoration activity conducted. I'm not sure what the balance of that would be relative to going in there and, doing the activity. So I guess I will start by sharing the zoning enforcement officer's photos, and then we can, once you have an understanding of kind of what happened, we can see if you have any questions directly for any of the parties involved. So this is the site that the sediment came from. As you can see, the entire front and rear yards were kind of regraded and stripped of vegetation. You can kind of see that the water was concentrating and flowing through here. And that erosion controls were installed or being installed when the zoning enforcement officer went out. This erosion control is completely separate and not related to the activity. However, there's two ponds. This is the, I believe, lower pond. And you can see that sediment has reached it. This is the upper pond. So these ponds are connected to the stormwater system. It's been described to me that this upper pond is intended to have, to some extent, kind of like a settling pond capability, given the fact that there is the discharge of stormwater to it. I know that at least the lower pond is stocked. I'm not sure about the upper pond. And again, this is looking at the lower pond with the upper pond to the back. And then this is a little spillway going to a riprap area and ultimately discharges to a wetland area with a bit of a water course, and then it gets piped again. So there was a little bit that went through the ponds. And then when I went out, when I went out last Thursday, the ponds were starting to clear up. They were a little bit scummy. The property owner with the pond said he wasn't sure if that was related or not. He said the surface was more like this over here in the far corner. You can see it's a little bit clearer prior to the storm event that resulted in the discharge of the sediment. And that's the lower pond, and this is the upper pond, which does look, you can tell that there was recent sediment entry in that upper pond in particular. Let's see. So this is, you can't really see it, but over here, this is where the stormwater system discharges into the upper pond, and this is where the upper pond overflows and discharges down to the lower pond. And this is dog bags the owner was pointing out to me.
Jamie,
because
does it only, this is Commissioner Boda, does it only discharge at high water levels? Is the pipe above?
So it looks like the pipe is not, I mean, the lower pond was flowing out. I didn't notice whether there was water flowing into the lower pond. I did notice that there was water flowing out from the lower pond. I don't think it takes much of a storm event for water to flow from one to the other. Do we have a property owner or representative for 40 Hickory Hill present that might be able to provide more context for the commission on that? I'm not hearing anyone.
Is it Hickory Hill or is it High Plains?
So the address of the property that did the clearing is High Plains, and the address of where the ponds are is Hickory Hill.
I think the person on Brent's iPhone is trying to speak.
Oh,
yeah.
Brent, you're muted.
Can you hear me now, Jamie? This is Brent Tuniver.
Can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I'm not sure. I think you're pretty correct on it. I think it doesn't take a lot of water in that pond. It's probably, the inverts are similar in elevation, and when it rains, it flows, and when it doesn't, it's probably pretty, it probably leaches some and then fills back up to that secondary pipe to go into the second pond is my guess.
And just for clarification, you're the
Contractor.
Yeah, I'm the contractor. I believe the homeowner is on as well, or he was earlier.
Yeah, so the homeowner for High Plains, which is the individual that was sent the notice of violation, is also present. I do not know if we have somebody for 40 Hickory Hill. If we do, it would either be owner's iPad or iPad Rob. So not hearing from them, I will kind of continue real quick running through the photos. I'm just going to skim through these real quick because I think they're kind of self-explanatory. Here you can see
you're not showing them anymore.
All right. A lot of them are repetitive, so we'll just start here. So here you can see it's just a trickle of overflow when I was out there last Thursday, coming from, this is from the lower pond. And it looked like water was pretty clear going through here at the time of my visit, about a week and a half after the occurrence. So this is kind of looking from that lower portion of the lower pond, and here you can see this is kind of the upper bank of the upper pond, and the road is right up in here. And then High Plains is around the corner off of Hickory Hill. And then this is when I went up to look at Hickory Hill. The erosion controls had been tightened up with the exception of this one area, which when I went back out this Monday, I saw had been tightened up per my request. And here you can see that, well, you can see the hay bales, but there is inlet protection in the catch basin underneath those hay bales. So I'm pretty confident there wasn't additional material getting into the ponds when I went out on Monday. However, when I went out on Monday, this is what the ponds look like. So you can see that the sediment appears to have been resuspended. So I do think the commission may want to have them have a soil scientist and or a limnologist take a look at the ponds, assess the impact, and whether or not any mitigation is appropriate. If the commission is looking to have that done, I think it should be done in a cease and correct format, because you're asking for them to conduct activity. And certainly I think involving the property owners of 40 Hickory Hill as notice would be appropriate, because they would obviously have to provide authorization for access. The state statutes allow for a violation to be issued to either a property owner or a violator. So it could be issued to property owner or the contractor that failed to install erosion controls resulting in the condition. Any thoughts from commissioners?
This is Commissioner Bassman. I guess would the task of the professionals be to determine what the corrective measure would be?
Yeah, so I think if the commission were to pursue that route, it would be kind of a two-step process. It would be for an investigation to be conducted to see what recommendations there are, if any, to address the sediment that has reached the ponds. If there are corrective actions, for that to be reviewed by the commission, and then the commission would ultimately make the decision of whether or not those recommendations should be implemented. So the recommendation should include how that work should be completed. It's possible that the recommendation would be that it would cause more disturbance to try and go in there to fix it, but I don't know that. And given that the sediment is resuspending, I think it's worthwhile to confirm.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I think also, we need to have, as part of that assessment, the why this needs to be corrected. What is the either short-term or long-term effect of a continued re-emergence of the sedimentation within the pond's structures?
Yeah, so yeah, I think that would be part of the consideration of what the impacts are and whether or not there are recommendations to correct the activity that has occurred.
Hey, Jamie, this is Brent. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen the pictures I sent of the actual catch basins. I actually took pictures again yesterday. I went down and pulled the silt sack out, and there's still over a foot of water before pipe invert. So there's no sediment in either of the basins on High Plains, where they both, the one adjacent to the property and the one across the street, and then it goes into a longer run in the direction of that pond. So I get, in my years of experience, get the feeling that there's not a lot of, it was just runoff. I know how you guys refer to dirty water. It's dirty water, but I don't believe there was a lot of sediment in it. So, typically when that happens, your basins fill up to the invert, and the way the material goes in both of those basins, there's nothing up to the invert. So in my opinion, there's not probably any matter that made it there other than dirty water.
So
this is Commissioner Bassman, but I think we're going to need a professional to determine that. It's in the business.
So there may not be material that accumulated in the catch basin. However, we're talking about fine particulates. They wouldn't really settle out that quickly. Right. So, and the catch basin size versus the size of these ponds is drastically different. So the amount of material that's accumulated in these ponds respectively is more than what's accumulated in that catch basin. So the
Correct.
question is whether or not there's anything that should be addressed. And I unfortunately do not feel qualified to answer that question. So that's why my recommendation to the commission is to consider whether a wetland scientist or perhaps a limnologist, which may be, there's some that practice both, should be doing an investigation to answer that question once and for all so that the commission knows whether there's action that should be taken or if at this point perhaps there isn't. But I don't know. If I had driven by this past Monday and the ponds were clearer than when I went out Thursday, I would say, well, I don't know, maybe it's not as necessary, but given the fact that when I went out there this Monday, they were looking worse again, it certainly seems like there has been sediment that has settled in the ponds, and I think it's worth investigating.
And it reemerges in a storm event. Jenny, can you contrast the difference between the wetland scientist and the limnologist? What's the specific difference between the two?
So don't quote me on this, but a limnologist essentially is somebody that studies lakes and ponds. So they'll be more, or they might be more versed in pond environments, specifically in suspension and layers. So that's why what was I gonna say? Another option the commission could consider, either as an alternative or perhaps in addition to, is whether or not a citation, a fine is appropriate. It'd be a one-time fine of $1,000 for the sedimentation of the ponds. And commission doesn't necessarily have to make a decision on that this evening. If you wanted to, you could have it be something you pick up after you get the findings from a report. Just wanted to put that on the table.
Jamie, this is Commissioner Goklowski. So I understand this. 40 Hickory Lane had their property regraded and...
Sorry, no. Nine Hill Plains regraded.
Nine Hill Plains had their property regraded, and this caused a direct result on 40 Hickory Lane with the sediment. Now, do you think the sediment would clear up if they put the vegetation back on that property? I mean, replanted the grass and things like that?
So like I said, I don't think there's new sediment getting into the ponds at this point because they have installed erosion controls. I mean, there could be a very minor amount getting in from the stormwater system, but as the contractor has indicated, the stormwater system doesn't have a lot of material in it. I think the material is fine enough that it didn't really have an opportunity to settle. I mean, especially since if you think about the last rain event we had, it was, at least where I wasn't in Branford at the time, it was pretty strong and intense and water was probably flowing pretty fast. So I certainly think that they should revegetate the property so that way there's no long-term need for those erosion controls or potential for additional impact to these ponds. I'm sure if you gave the ponds long enough, they would clear up on their own. I guess the question is whether that is the pertinent course of action.
This is Commissioner Boda. I think, Jamie, I appreciate your kind of sharing your limitations in kind of deciding what has happened in this pond, because we don't know, and I think it does make a lot of sense for there to be an investigation done by someone with the time and the credentials to tell us what the short and long-term impacts are, because those tiny silt particles, it can be that every time there is a significant rain event, it's going to resuspend, and or the things that traveled with those fine particulates were carrying any number of other contaminants like heavy metals and salts and things that impair and impact the waterways. So I think without an investigation, we're really speculating, and there's no reason for us to do that. And it's not really our
This
place.
program was
So
brought to you in.
I would look for the folks at 9 High Plains Road to secure an appropriate scientist, which again, I think it might be a wetland scientist, although it may be, they do need some background in ponds specifically. So if they have a specialty in limnology, that could be good, but it's going to be important that they have the background in ponds to do an investigation about the silt or the sediment that impacted that pond, and what the short and long-term impacts are of that fill that's gone in, and then recommendations for next steps, whether that's remediation or I'll let that expert figure that out. So that's what I would think. And then I think it would make sense to, let's see, it's August now. And so to have the High Plains folks back with an update within a month. I don't anticipate that all that work would be done, but we should have an update within the month of, have they secured a person? What's the date? And for us to know better what the next steps are. And of course, the vegetation of 9 High Plains to happen very quickly.
Agreed. That's my concern as well, to get it stabilized. So it's only going to help at this point.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I agree with what Commissioner Boda said, but I feel pretty strongly that it's a limnologist that we need to have look at this rather than a soil scientist, specializing particularly in lakes and ponds, because a soil scientist, I mean, they're looking at the soils, and if the sediment comes from somewhere else, they're not. I'm leaning toward limnologist. I'll leave it at that.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Brett, do you plan on replanting seed anytime soon on that property?
So the homeowner and myself have been in contact. Not that I'm making excuses, but the reason I didn't do the silt fence was we had a schedule of a guy. I was going to spread topsoil on the Monday before the Sunday rain, screwed that up, and he had anticipated sodding the entire front yard. And we're trying to get back on track with that, which would be great, because now we're putting immediate stabilization down and probably doing some sodding in the rear as well, and seeding any other areas. So yeah, that's the plan, to get it stabilized. And if we did sod and say we did a seeding area, I would probably put hay bales at the edge of where the seeding ended and the sod started. That way, if there was any runoff from the unstabilized dirt, it would clean up before it ran onto the sod. You follow what I'm saying?
Wouldn't hydroseeding be a better solution if you're not going to sod the area?
Possibly. I don't. Or there's also, if it's on a hill, I think in the hill we were talking to sod. I'm not sure how many yards of sod he had planned on ordering, but I know the front is where most of the runoff ends up. So, and the back is pretty flat, and it does, it doesn't drain crazily quickly there. It sheets off pretty evenly. It's not concentrated very much in any areas. So it's just these crazy rains we've been having are just relentless. So yeah, I agree. The more sod, the better, but maybe hydroseeding as well. Or I'd have to speak with him, as to what he wanted to do. Sod's expensive, as you know.
Very expensive.
Yeah. But he likes a nice lush green lawn, and that'll give him an instant one. So,
This is Commissioner Bassman. Jamie, do we have a list of limnologists? Or how do you pursue that request for a professional?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think that we don't necessarily have to specify in that detail, other than to say that they have background in limnology, because it could be an ecologist, it could be a wetland scientist. Folks aren't necessarily so narrow, right? You have a specialty, but that your title could be ecologist. So I think we just want someone who has that background.
What I was getting at is, in other cases, for professionals, we have provided to the applicant or the violator, a list of whether it's, for plantings or soil scientists, etc. I didn't know whether we had a similar list that we could give the homeowner for this particular need.
We do not.
It doesn't sound like we do.
We do not. I did do a quick Google search, and numerous options came up. However, I do think the point that Commissioner Boda made is a good one. It's not like this is. I think that's fair given what the concerns of the commission are and the resources to be inspected. What was I gonna say? There was one other point I was going to make. So I guess the question is, do you want to pursue this in an informal matter? And hopefully we can work with the parties and get to a resolution until we at least find out what recommendations are. Do you want me to issue a cease and correct order? And if so, do you want me to issue it to the owner of 9 High Plains or the contractor that conducted the work at 9 High Plains?
This is Commissioner Boda. I think that keeping the cease and correct, that way we're at least for a while until we're up and moving and we know that we're on the right path, ensures that this doesn't fall off of anybody's radar. And I would say that it would be issued to the property owner at High Plains as well as the contractor.
Okay.
This Commissioner Papantonis, I would definitely issue to both.
Commissioner Armrod, yeah, I like those ideas. I don't know if we need to specify language in terms of cease and correct actions, but I think the cease portion of it should be any regrading construction activities at 9 High Plains Road need to cease, and they need to correct the condition of by revegetating the area that was disturbed, and we believe at this point to be the source of the sediment contamination.
Jamie Frederick and the Wetland Agent. So I agree that certainly the cease is any further grading site work aside from revegetating the areas that are disturbed. And then the corrective actions would be maintaining the erosion controls, hiring a soil scientist with a background in limnology or pond experience to investigate the ponds and present recommendations of any corrective actions that should be taken for review by the commission. And then I would insert per discussion earlier with an update to be provided for the commission at the September 26th meeting. With the issuance of a cease and correct order, we do have a show cause hearing. So I would get this issued so that that show cause hearing could be held on, well, this is kind of awkward because we have an extra week. But I guess I would issue that cease and correct order September 3rd, so we could have that show cause hearing on September 12th, unless the commission wants to have a special meeting.
This is Commissioner Goklowski. Should we also notify the property owner at
Yes.
40 Hickory that there's a cease and correct order directly related to their property? Because if we don't have access, if we don't issue that, we could be in the same boat that we can't have access to the property to check for whatever has to be checked out.
Absolutely. I would plan to CC the owner of 40 Hickory Hill on that letter.
Well, CC or issue the cease and correct on that property as well.
If the commission feels that it's appropriate, we could. I think so. I mean, I have met with a representative of the property. I believe the property is owned by a trust right now. So I met with one of the members that resides at the property, and he indicated I don't think it'll be a problem. I think that theoretically we could CC them on the order, and if you want, I could include a cover letter that, you know, outlines the commission's concerns, and, you know, that if they do not work with the violators to correct this problem, that they could also be subject to a cease and correct order.
Yeah, that's fine. I
like that.
Then this is Commissioner Boda. I think additionally with, if you would include in that cease and correct for the correct that scientist that's hired as part of their investigation and then reporting needs to specify short and what happened, and then short and long-term impacts of this abrupt siltation. And then you had mentioned a soil scientist, and I agree with Commissioner Papantonis. I wouldn't be so specific. I would just say a scientist with credentials in limnology, wetland science, because I do think that the in this case the water chemistry is going to be really, really important. We just want to make sure that whoever is doing that work is going to be looking through that lens.
This is Commissioner Bassman, and be present at that September meeting.
Guys, this is Darren Capobianco, homeowner of 9 High Plains Road. I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm here now, and I got my father, Tom Capobianco, with me. So I just wanted to make myself known. I think Tom had a couple comments that he wanted to bring up.
Yes, hi. This is Tom Capobianco. I've been in direct contact with Jamie. We have a scheduled for the week after Labor Day for all topsoil. Jamie did give me the approval to get some vegetation in there. We have 15,000 square feet of sod coming in to cover at least half of the front yard. On the 16th or 17th, weather permitting, of September. And in between that, the week of the 8th or 9th, we have sprinkler systems going in. So it's going to go topsoil, sprinklers, and then sod. to handle it. So Jamie did allow us to go on there to get that vegetation to leave it like that. Also, from someone who's basically 7 years old, we had no idea that moving dirt in your backyard and leveling out your front yard, some low spots, could end up in a pond a quarter mile down the road. No idea whatsoever. So for what it's worth.
Inland Wetland Associate Katie Blanchett, just so that the commissioners know, the property owner at 40 Hickory Hill was the one who reported the problem. So I think you know, him just being looped in is going to be sufficient. I don't think he's going to have an issue with the work that needs to be done.
And as far as you say it,
well, they were worried about obtaining access to the property and whether or not the property owner was going to be cooperative. And my
that's not a problem. I
Yeah.
talked to the property owner. I have his number. I text them, so I could just tell him, hey, we're having somebody come out here this day. He'll say, come on down.
Yeah, I had also recommended, Katie, that for Darren, the following day, Monday night, you had that heavy rain. Sunday, Brent was there when we went there Monday morning with the silt fence, and he got all the bales of hay and laid the hay on the property and on the hill and took care of it immediately that day. And then when we found out there was water from our property that ended up in someone's pond down the road, we had said, how is that even possible? You mean somebody catch basin goes into someone's pond in their yard? We had no idea. Yeah. So we did the corrective things that we could do as a homeowner. You know, Darren's he's my youngest of 5 children. So we've always abided by whatever has to be done, we'll take care of. So I already have the sod ordered from the sod farm and the topsoil. So Jamie has given me the approval and from her end to have trucks on there. So I don't want to have a problem with all of a sudden you see 16 wheelers in there dumping topsoil at the week of Labor Day. The following week is sprinklers. And then the following week, 16th, I think it is for 15,000 square feet of sod that I already ordered. So that's our corrective measures that we could do to, we actually found a lot of this out because we had gone, my son wanted to pull a permit to add on to the bedroom upstairs on the 2nd floor. And so I went with him. And that's when a lot of this, we found out that you can't even do that until this gets rectified. But we had no idea when our yard ended up in someone else's yard from dirt coming down from soil, going to a catch basin up over it. We just had no idea.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Boda. That's a hard lesson learned. And also just as you're thinking about treating your property, whether it's with fertilizers or pesticides, know that those are also moving off of your property with the rainfall and going right into that pond. So now that you are aware of that, that's something to keep in mind, that everything that we put on the ground goes into the nearest body of water and it makes all of its way down to Long Island Sound. So.
Okay.
Anything else on this NOV? Great. Any other comments from the commission? Okay, moving along. We had a public hearing on the regulations regarding the Connecticut Stormwater Manual and the guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. I think Jamie did some work and the changes were reviewed and are on the Dropbox. Jamie, anything new there?
So Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. Sorry, I just realized I put my 9 High Plain notes under Beacon Hill, so I was just clarifying that for tomorrow. Did you open the public hearing?
I did.
Oh, okay. So, as you've stated, this is something the commission has been looking at for a while as part of the public hearing prep process. I took the regulation revisions that we have discussed and I put them into the full regulations and I sent them up to the state. They received them. They didn't have any comments beyond their standard comment of we're not reviewing them. Please make sure you consult town council, yada, yada, yada. However, the town engineer reviewed the revised language And he's like, huh, weren't you revising it so that it'd be 1.3 inches instead of 1 inch? And I was like, yeah. So I have that correction proposed, and that's in one of the exhibits. And then the town engineer also had some clarification on language that I thought does perhaps relay a little bit better. So pretty minor changes, but there are 2 changes proposed from the language that was submitted up to the state and filed in the town clerk's office. So with it being the public hearing, I can screen share those regulations and we can try and run through them really fast. Because we need to get, kind of on the record what the changes are and why we're proposing them. All right, everyone's seeing the regulations.
Yeah.
All right, so first change is members. Second change is to the definitions. So we were looking to add DCIA, which is directly connected impervious area. This term comes from the Connecticut Deep Stormwater General Permits. So basically I'm deferring to that for any further information. We reference it later in the regs, and then while we were looking to add DCIA, we realized duly authorized agent was in the wrong place, so we're relocating it. And then obviously changing all the other things to have the correct numbering.
This is Commissioner Boda. Is anybody else seeing a black box in the upper left-hand corner?
That's
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay. And then the bulk of our changes are in section 7. So the changes here are to address changes to stormwater quality manual and erosion control manual. From the erosion control standpoint, it's basically just updating the language to reference the new manual and be open-ended so we don't have to change it every time that they change it. From a stormwater quality standpoint, one of the biggest changes is the stormwater quality or water quality volume calculation, and then just kind of modifying things to align with new terminology and structure in the new report. So we've got referencing the updated chapter. We get rid of groundwater recharge volume because while they still talk about groundwater recharged, they don't reference a volume anymore.
Jamie, hold on. This is Commissioner Bassman. Didn't we already go over these?
Yeah, but this is the public hearing.
So we can't just refer to the review that we had in the prior public meeting and only go over the change that you recently made tonight?
I think we should at least very high level overview them. And if you guys don't have any questions, we can probably get through it.
She's gonna go fast.
Really fast.
We're gonna go really fast.
So
really fast here.
You're making it take longer. So the big change here is that essentially where it says 1 inch, it should say P. So instead of 1 inch, it would be 1.3 inches. And that's based on the new stormwater quality volume or the new stormwater quality guide. And that's based off of the last approximately 40 years of rainfall data for the state of Connecticut and the 90th percentile of that rainfall amount. And then it's just kind of a little bit of restructuring. Here we've got the simple disconnections, a new thing from the stormwater quality manual. And so we added a bit of information for context, and that relates directly back to the manual. Required retention volume, that is essentially what is required to be retained on site. We've got the 100%, which we standard require for a new development, and then kind of to align with MS4, we're requiring 75% for redevelopment of sites that are currently developed with existing directly connected impervious area of 40% or more, meaning that there's 40% or more of the site that is impervious and discharges directly into the stormwater system. MS4 permit triggers that at I believe it's only 50% of the site's water quality volume, but we had 75 in our last reg revision. It was intended to keep it at that, with the understanding that if it's demonstrated why that's not possible, that can be considered. I kind of already went over that, so unless there's any questions from commissioners. Again, we're just kind of changing wording to better align with the stormwater quality manual. We got hung up on this a bit at the meeting where we last discussed it. Plantings shall include Connecticut native vegetation within wetlands, watercourses, stormwater quality structures, and protected vegetated areas. I had thought that if the commission still had concerns about that, we could add the language of after that, when selecting non-native species for these areas, explanation for selection should be provided prior to the no plants listed as invasive or potentially invasive by the state of Connecticut, and the Connecticut Invasive Plant Council shall be planted on any site. I don't know if it's necessary. Thought I'd throw it out there in case anyone still had reservations. Any comments, or should I keep going?
Keep going. Fewer words are better. Fewer words are better.
So
in the
hey, this is Commissioner Begemon, and I hate to drag this down, but I like Jamie's suggestion, because I think shall include, they could do 10% and the rest be non-native. And if we're trying to get more natives, then we should really say something.
I can everyone see the possible language that I was just referencing? Sometimes it's easier to see it
if you blow it up a little.
So the highlight would be the additional language that wasn't in the language sent to D.
This is Commissioner Papantonis. I like that change too.
Anybody not like it? Good to go.
All right. So then this is the other place where a recommendation was made for change, and let me just pull it up to make sure I don't misquote it. So instead of include DCIA and amount of DCIA disconnected, if applicable, have include pre and post development DCIA in square feet. And I do think it reads better. And I believe that brings us to the end of the changes, with the exception of some formatting corrections, i.e. this, which is non-substantive. So ultimately, my recommendations would be to modify the regs per Exhibit 7, and then potentially that language for 7.6E. And we could call this Exhibit 8. Let me just make sure that we don't have an Exhibit 8. Yeah, Exhibit 8. Any comments, questions, thoughts from commissioners?
And the question, Jamie, Commissioner Basserman, does they then need to get resubmitted?
I don't think the changes are substantive enough that it would trigger that.
Okay.
So they do get resubmitted, but they can get resubmitted. So after the commission makes a decision on the regulations, they get submitted to DEEP and filed in the town clerk's office. I think the 1.3 inch, I think the intent is there with the P value being added, and also with the fact that they were revised with the intent to align with the stormwater quality manual, and that is the calculation in the stormwater quality manual. I can just jump to that real quick. Oh boy. So here you can see the stormwater quality manual, and it does have that P where the 1 inch is, and it does have P as 1.3 inches. So I think it's pretty, I think the dots are there.
Okay. You need a formal motion on the regulations?
Yes, so also for consideration would be the effective date for the regulations. I would recommend an effective date of September 12th, because that allows staff to get the notice in the paper, and it also creates a nice clear mark for applications received prior to the September 12th meeting fall under our current regs, and applications received September 12th and later, so for consideration at our second September meeting and in the future fall under the future regulations.
This is Commissioner Bassman. I make a motion that the regulations that were reviewed by the Branford Inland Wetland Commission on August 22nd, 2024, be made with an effective date of September 12th, 2024. Specifically changes associated with the Stormwater Management Guide of 2023. End of motion.
Commissioner Bodell, second.
Any further discussion?
For clarification,
Any amendments to that motion?
For clarification, were you looking to make the changes as outlined in Exhibit 7, and we'll call the change that I presented, it highlighted in yellow, Exhibit 8, to those regulations?
I would accept that clarification.
Boda, do you agree?
Yes, I also accept that clarification.
Okay, I guess we'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Papatonis?
Can't get my mute off. Sorry. Commissioner Papantonis, aye.
Commissioner Goklowski?
Commissioner Goklowski, aye.
Commissioner Armrod?
Commissioner Ormrod, aye.
Commissioner Begeman?
Commissioner Begeman, aye.
Commissioner Finaro?
Commissioner Finaro, aye.
Commissioner Boda?
Commissioner Boda, aye.
Commissioner Basserman, aye. All right. Let's see. We have one application for receipt. Inland Wetland 240801, 33 Pepperwood Lane. The addition with a second story, or maybe an agent review.
Jamie Frederick and the wetland agent. The addition is proposed where there's currently existing driveway. I do think there's some minor modifications to the driveway to be proposed. I asked the applicant to clarify that, but given that it's by and large where there's already impervious area, and that they're actually modifying some of the areas of disturbance to drain away from the wetland, not in a way that I think will negatively impact the wetland, and that the activity is probably about 80 to 90 feet away from the wetland. I thought it might be agent approval, but I haven't had a chance to review it and get the information that I think is needed. So because it's still before us, it's on the agenda. If anyone has any concerns, let me know, because otherwise I do plan to review it administratively.
So warned. All right. Agent review 240702, 36 Greenfield Avenue, above ground pool. You issued a permit. Anything else under agent reviews that you want to raise at this point?
No. Not unless
No.
commissioners
Good.
have questions.
Correspondence and announcements. What's this action with the sewer capacity?
So no action is required, but we did receive a letter that was addressed to the chairman. So I put it in the Dropbox to commissioners. Feel free to review it. If you have questions, you can let us know. We can see about getting answers. It really pertains to the purview of the WPCA, which is the Wastewater Pollution Control Authority. What? I think I said that a little bit wrong, but it's within the purview of another agency. But again, feel free to review it and let me know if you have any questions. And I do have one other announcement that's not on here. Commissioner Finaro has decided to resign from the commission. So I'd like to thank her for her time served on the commission. It's been great. I understand it's quite the time commitment. So you will be missed, but thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate that, Commissioner Finaro. Whatever road you take, hopefully it's as fulfilling as this one.
Oh, I appreciate being on the board, and I will be working more closely with the Friends of the Farm River. So hope see you all again in the area. Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, guys. Is there a motion to adjourn here?
We're at the end of the agenda. You can end it, Peter.
All right, gone.
Have a good evening, everyone.
See you too.
Bye. Bye.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.